Okay, hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to talk to you about a book written by a friend of mine, and this book is called The Freedom Swimmers by Tony Chin. Um, The Freedom Swimmers by Tony Chin is a heartfelt story of perseverance, human spirit, and tenacity. It begins roughly around the 1950s, right before the communists take over in China in particular. And it follows the life story of, and you have to forgive me because I'm not entirely sure how to say the name here, Sukhin, Sukhining, who is the author's mother from what I recall, and tells the gripping story of her escape from communist China. So, as a social studies teacher, often I see students, they have just like really weird understandings, both of particularly so they have a very juvenile understanding of capitalism, but honestly, some people just have a really brain dead understanding of what communism was, and also what it did to the average citizen who lived under a communist system. And so the Freedom Swimmers is a book that just follows the story of I mean, she's quite young at the start of the book, and it follows the story of this young girl who her whole life is just turned upside down when the communists take over in China. And we get to see how things get progressively worse and worse and worse over time. And, and you get to see these interactions that she has with people around her. And you get to see how her family life is turned up onto its head and how everyone around her in the state just really starts to crumble. And it's really good for anyone who's interested in seeing when the communists take over, because a lot of young people like communism, what will actually happen. And obviously you got to acknowledge that this book, it takes place in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and so obviously there's a lot of technological advancements, but if you really take the time to learn about what's going on in China, particularly with their surveillance systems and social credit systems, it's just give the book a read and you'll get an idea of what's going on, particularly the more dystopian stuff with the government and whatnot. And so, this book shows us the impact the communist takeover had on a specific family, a specific individual, a community, and ultimately a country, a nation of people. So moving on, a bit about the writing style. So Tony Chin is, as I mentioned, hopefully I can call him a friend. I've trained with him a fair bit of times. We both do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a black belt. He's a police officer. He's a very down-to-earth guy. He's a father and a husband. And so, when he writes in his book, it's not written in a manner that's, as if you're reading a history textbook. It's written in a very personable way that's easy to really get immersed into what's actually happening in the story and follow along that way. Tony writes in a voice that is easy to follow along, and his narrative of Sukhin's life makes it easy to get immersed into the story, almost as if the reader is going through these challenges with her, right? And that's totally, when I really got into the book, it was as if I was the part because I don't want to spoil anything about the book. It felt as if I was one of the members of her, I guess we'll call it a team of people trying to escape China. And so you feel like almost as if you're just following along the various steps that she's taking. Fortunately, there are not too many characters to follow, so she does have her, I guess it would be Tony's grandmother and great-grandmother that we learn a little bit about, family, some siblings, but there's not a whole lot of people that are discussed in the book, and I'm just going to be quite frank, some of the, I'm not very familiar with Chinese names, and some of the names can get difficult, so it's kind of nice that it focuses on a very small group of people, and very specific people who helped Sukhin along the way. Again, the book is not designed to be historical analysis and retelling. It truly is a story about an individual's journey to freedom, told as best as Tony could manage through the eyes of Sukhin, right? So if I recall correctly, because I've talked to Tony about his book, he kind of had the story told to him from his mother and slowly pieced it together and put it into the form of a book. Okay, so moving on into the story. As we follow the story, the next thing that stuck out to me was just how fast things changed for the worse. Okay, so Su King's life is turned upside down in what seems like an overnight change. Her family is torn apart. Strangers are living in her house. She no longer gets to spend all her days with her and her extended family. Quickly, Su King, like many others, are put to work by the government, and not in a cheerful way. It's more of a do what we tell you to do or else. She does talk about this particular scene that still stuck with me. She was quite young and she didn't really fully understand, but what she did understand was that there was a lot of military personnel who were holding guns, and they were ready to shoot people if they weren't going to do the work. Another scene that stuck out is just kind of on the outskirts of the work being done and kind of let's call it civilization. You could kind of peek to the side. She says you could kind of peek to the side and see carts of bodies being hauled off. And just over in my bookshelf back there, I have a couple of books. One of them is called Tombstone, which talks about some 50 million Chinese people that died during Mao Zedong's takeover of China and the Great Leap Forward. Mao's Great Famine as well talks about a lot of the same things, and just again, that number, 50 million people. So at the time of recording this video, Canada's population is around 38, 39 million, right? So we're looking at all of Canada and some wiped out in the span of 5 to 15 years. So going back into the story, at first it's great for most people, as many may have been poor prior to the takeover. There's plenty of food to go around. So the communists, they create these community dining halls. Everybody goes there to eat. And, you can kind of think, oh, that's really nice. Everybody gets free food. But the reality is, well, the government's controlling what you get to eat and how much of it. And so at the start, when there's a lot of surplus because they're just taking over and implementing their policies, there's a lot of food to go around and everybody can eat freely and, really fill their belly. But it doesn't take long for it to become a dystopian hell. And, in a few short years with the implementation of Mao Zedong's Communist Party's agricultural policies and practices, slowly it's okay, well, the first year they took over, second, third, fourth, you start to see the amount of food they have go down until people are literally being fed gruel, right? So there's kind of rice, water stuff. At first they had vegetable, a little bit of meat, maybe some extra food on the side, but in a few short years they're basically getting a bowl filled with some kind of crappy soup with a little bit of rice in it. Not very nutritious, not something you want after a hard day's labor, right? Which I think I discussed that, and before we move on to the next portion, I will mention the labor that they did. Speaking more on the dystopian hell aspect, so Su King mentions that eventually there's megaphones set up all around cities and whatnot, and sorry, there's just something happening in my video, but we should be good. There's these megaphones that blare these messages in support of Mao and the Communist Party. They talk about who to blame for certain problems like food shortages. I guess also on that aspect of the dystopian hell, there's food shortages, there's extreme rations, people really don't get enough food. It's borderline slave labor, they're not being paid. Their payment is you get to live here and you get food, right? Hard labor, so particularly she mentions one of her least favorite jobs, if I recall correctly, was kind of picking the rice, because it's you had to be hunched over all day picking rice with your hands, and even if you stood up to kind of stretch out your back, get a stretch, you basically had a gun pointed at you saying, hey, get back to work, why are you being lazy? You were getting in the way of this communist utopia by being lazy. Get back to work. And so very hard labor, very borderline slavery. It's very extreme. It's completely forced. Bodies being carted off en masse. Zero room for disagreement. So what happened not only in the USSR, which is the communist Russia, but also in China, was that essentially you couldn't even speak freely to the people around you because there was no disagreeing with the political party, the Communist Party, and there's no disagreeing with the philosophy. And so if you were doing that, if you're speaking against it, they had already set up a system where if you hear that, you must report, right? Because if you don't report, then you're part of it and you'll all be punished. And so, there's no room for disagreement, which leads to neighbors spying on neighbors, government officials coming in to take, sorry, that's the next part, but you have neighbors spying on neighbors and snitching people out, and you just don't even know who to trust, which just dissolves the society, right? Again, trust is very important. last but not least, the government officials at some point come in to take all of the metalware in the house, right? So pots and pans, to support their steel industry to push that forward. And so now you really don't even have anything to cook your own food in, right? With what little like money you get, and the list goes on. So eventually, as the years go by, Su King is physically losing a lot of body mass. She's like kind of malnourished, as is everyone. She's now desperate. She devises a plan to figure out her escape, knowing that if she is caught, it could be severe, not only for herself, but her family as well, and potentially her friends. So the communists were basically anyone who was trying to escape, if they were caught, and sometimes not even caught, like if they left, the family would be reprimanded for them, right? It's like, hey, like someone in your family escaped the country or tried to escape, it's punishable upon you and the person who left, right? So, your sins are not only yours, they're also like your family, anyone near and close to you. On her attempt to escape China, Su King is met with some favorable help. She even gets to revisit her old family home one time, which is like completely in ruins and whatnot, and a remnant of what it was. She faces many setbacks, but what was most enjoyable about this story was her daring spirit to continue in the face of adversity. I mean, truly, this book is just amazing. The story in here of what she is able to do. Again, I'm not trying to spoil it because I think you should read it. It's like $12, $13 on Amazon. Maybe 14, but it tells you what a person is capable of doing when they set their mind to a goal. And without, I could tell you more, but then I'd spoil what she does and what she's capable of doing and how much she overcomes the obstacles. But let's move on. So why should you read this book? So I think all young people should read this book, and quite frankly, I'm kind of mentally preparing how could I get a class set of 30, 35 books to be able to maybe do this in a social studies or an English classroom and create some resources on this novel as well. But so one, it tells a daring story of a young woman who will stop at nothing to achieve her goal. By following her on her journey, it shows us just how incredible the human spirit can be, and everyone likes a hero story, right? We want to see people win and overcome a great obstacle. It's like the David and Goliath story, really. That's what it is. Two, it gives us a boots-on-the-ground perspective of what communism was like for many citizens, how it was implemented, and a bit of how people felt about it. So that would be really great for any social studies curriculum, particularly Social 30, but also just really good to ask yourself and to educate yourself of when you see policies that are going really hard, left-wing, socialist, communist. Like you have a story of a particular individual, and her story is not unique in this regard. Tony had told me that they were called the freedom swimmers, that are the people who swam away from China and escaped. But it gives you a lot of practical information, knowledge, and details on what it was like for people during that time, during that system. Number three, it demonstrates how authoritarian governments create a dystopian hell in which one is not free in action, and at many times not even free in speech or thought, right? So what I mean by that is that you have this authoritarian top-down government. It tells you what you do every day. So every day Su King had to go to the town center along with her mother, and while her grandmother could work, and all the community citizens, they all go to their town center and they're told by a guard, like, okay, like Alex, you're gonna go pick fruit off that tree with no safety equipment. Joey, you're gonna go work in the rice field. Lisa, you're gonna go pick deal with the animals. Lisa is gonna go over there and she's gonna clean out the barn. I'm just making jobs off the top of my head. Some of these are real, some of them are not. But you're basically told what to do every single day, and you don't have a choice, right? So maybe you get a nice, easy job. Maybe you're working in a house, cleaning something. Or maybe you get a job where you're climbing 20, 30 feet up a tree collecting fruit, hoping you don't fall and die, or, it's a very dangerous job, very tough work. And, if you've read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, this is no different than what the Nazis did in their concentration camps. They basically told all the Jews what they were going to do. They were assigned to various tasks. It might not have been on a daily basis, but the Jewish prisoners of war, I don't even know if that's what you'd call them, but the Jewish prisoners in these concentration camps were basically told what to do and had no choice. It's authoritarian system. So you're not free in action, and you're really not free in speech or thought. So the communists created such a toxic environment for the average person that you couldn't speak your mind freely. And, for most of us, that's like, we don't even think about that because we're allowed to say whatever we want. There's no consequence, really. I mean, unless you say something racist or you say something that gets you punched in the face. But generally speaking, if you have an opinion that's so foolish and absurd and so wrong and ridiculous, there's no actual consequence, so you can criticize whoever's in government, you can criticize policies, you can say really vile things, really, and there's no real consequences. So, this book really helps to demonstrate what it would be like to be under a system where you can't really speak freely. Number 4, it dispels this utter nonsense of communism is creating utopia, and with communism we can all be artists and craftsmen. The simple reality is you will have to work, even in a communist hellhole, I'm going to call it. You just won't be fairly compensated for it, nor will you reap the rewards of your labor. So, the hard workers didn't get more food. They just got more work the next day, whatever it was. Maybe they didn't get beat. Now, people who snitched were rewarded, but, you got to ask yourself, do you want to be slimy or not? But yeah, so again, coming back to the start, what I mentioned about students' understanding of communism, and quite frankly, not even just students, but there's a lot of people my age in their 20s, maybe even in their 30s, who think that, oh, we have this socialist, communist utopia. Well, you and I will just be able to hang out, frolic in the sun, and do whatever we want with our time and day, whatever. And even Karl Marx writes about that. Like, you work 4 hours, you relax 4 hours, and you do whatever the hell you want for 4 hours, and that's your day. Well, that's convenient and all, but if I want a drink of water, well, who's going to make the glass, and who's going to do all the work on the water to make sure it's clean? Who's going to grow the tree for the paper on this book? Who's going to produce the ink? Who's going to put the thing together? Like, even this computer that I'm recording this on, and the Wi-Fi that I have, and the electricity that keeps the light on, it keeps the house warm. Like, all this stuff needs to be produced by human labor, more or less. So it's like, well, sure, we get to live in a utopia where we don't have to do any work. So what, do we just make people on the other side of the world do the work? All those poor people over there, like, they're going to do it for us. They're going to do all the digging and the mining and the growing and the putting things together so that we can just play in the sun. The reality is you're going to have to work, right? And I think it was Aldous Huxley who said, and I have his book over there, that's what I'm pointing, who said, and I could be wrong, but, if humans were to create a utopia, they would quickly tear it down out of sheer boredom just to see what would happen next. If you had this uniform, perfect life where you didn't have to work or struggle, there's this belief that we would just tear it down, destroy it, rip it apart, just to have something new and different and exciting happen, right? So, that's something to really think about. Okay, last but not least, and number 5, it is written by a friend, a local Albertan. He's a Canadian author. He's a great guy. If you ever meet him, he's one of the friendliest jiu-jitsu friends I have. Really great dude. He put in a lot of effort for this book, and I think he continues to do so. So it would mean a lot to him. It's a story that, I had asked him. He mentioned that he essentially wrote this book for his daughters to pass on that story, that heritage, but also for young people in general to understand, how difficult life can get, things to be grateful for, and, how capable human beings are. So I hope that this book review was enjoyable. This is a new type of video for me, and I hope to do maybe a couple more. We'll see as I read certain books and whatnot. Maybe another book, although I put a couple videos out on this one too, John Maxwell's 5 Levels of Leadership, but we'll see. If you liked the video and you made it this far, leave a comment. Let me know if you're willing to read the book. If you see me in school and want to read the book, please ask me. I can lend you the copy. I have no problem doing that. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.